Yes, sorry for the delay. Yes, we are live now.
Mhm.
Firuza, over to you.
Okay. Good evening, dear colleagues. Good to see you all again. Welcome to the following session of article discussion. Today we are discussing the article by Ella Maksakova, Do It Yourself Project, a task-based activity to engage students. Ella, thank you for agreeing to be the speaker in today's session. And let me tell briefly about you, introduce you to the audience. Well, Ella Maksakova, so she is Webster University graduate, and she has been teaching English to adults as well as to young learners for more than 20 years, which means she is a very experienced teacher. Currently, she works in Moscow State University. Yes, am I right, Ella? And at Webster University as well. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes, hello. Yeah, the
Ella.
only remark
Yeah.
from, can you hear me? Am I
Yes.
audible?
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that not 20 years of experience, 10.
10 years. I see. Because
But it
in the
doesn't make me less
article,
experienced, but just to be correct.
okay. Okay. Just because in the article, it was mentioned like you have been teaching since 2001. That's why.
Okay.
Okay. Anyway, so you could tell more about yourself and then we can move on to discussion.
Oh, yeah. Thank you very much for inviting me. Thank you for organizers of this event. I'm really honored to be a part of this meeting. I'm very glad to see my friends, my colleagues here. I'm very glad to meet new colleagues, new practicing teachers. Um, uh, to say the least, of course, I do not pretend an expert in article writing, but I'm very happy that I can share my own life experience in writing an article, going through this path. I was guided. I will talk about it more later on. But today I'm very happy to share my experience, my understanding, teacher's perspective, practitioner's perspective on articles writing. So I know that there are questions. So as soon as we are ready, yes, I will be glad to share more.
Yeah. Okay. So, we have questions that I have prepared beforehand based on your article. But at the same time, dear audience, dear participants, you're welcome to ask your questions. Please write in chat box. So I will be following, and I will be announcing your questions as well. Okay. So. While you are thinking your questions, I will start with my questions. Okay. Well, Nadirapa, do you think you can share the screen, please? Okay. Okay. So, Ella, the first question is, so I read the article. I think the other audience also, participants also read the article, and it was noticeable how enthusiastic you have been while applying this method, task-based language teaching activity. And can you tell us what motivated you to write the article about task-based language teaching?
Yeah, interesting question, but it actually comprises two different parts that resonate with each other. Of course, why I was motivated to write an article, that's a good question in itself, and why an article about TBLT. So if you don't mind, I would like to separate this question into two short parts. Well, what motivated me generally to write the article? To be honest, the lack of experience in writing articles, and here I do not mean writing article as a genre, it's a lack of experience of sharing the practice, it's lack of practice to share your experience, your observations with other colleagues. So I just would like to break up the stereotype when teachers work under constant workload and they really miss or lack the opportunities to use their margin notes and to develop them into something that could serve not only his or her own practice, but to be shared with a bigger audience. So first of all, it's the desire just to go one level higher, not just leave my observation, classroom-based observation on my margins, but to develop it into something that I believe could be replicated to local context in many other classrooms. That's about the article. So I would like to inquire this good practice of sharing the experience. This is about, article. And why TBLT? Yeah, Firuza, you're right. I was enthusiastic. And even in my teacher philosophy, I mentioned it that I really believe in task-based approach when teaching EFL learners. Task-based, I think, I don't know, maybe there are other approaches that can engage students to that much degree. But what I have observed in my classroom, if you really know your students, you can read the audience, you have a good rapport, you know the context, their interest, why they're learning English, what could be interesting for them. So for a teacher to design or to adapt, let's say, a task that can engage students, hook them up, and encourage them to use language in an authentic way, it's really broadens their horizons of why to learn English, why to do homework, why it could be interesting. So for me, writing an article about task-based, it's just maybe transporting or transmitting my belief about tasks as an approach that can engage students to a very big extent and help the teacher and the students to increase a motivation. Yeah.
I see. Thank you for your full answer. Okay. Well, so far we have no question from the participants. So again, I will remind you, you are welcome with any questions related to the article. Okay, you can ask. Well, so in the meantime, I will move on to the next question. Well, Ella, what do you think about the frequency of this applying this method into teaching? This is my second question, Nadirapa. Can we move to the next one, please? Yeah. How often we can apply this method into our teaching? For example, let's say in a semester, or if I'm putting it correctly, in a year, in one academic year. Yeah. So generally about frequency.
Yes, thank you. I think the answer could be displayed into two areas. First, it depends on the task, of course, right? On the complexity of the task. When we talk about assigning a task that students, we expect this teacher to be able to accomplish, teacher needs to understand that the student, first of all, must acquire some skills and competencies to be able to accomplish the task successfully. So, and it might happen over a period of time, let's say end of unit, end of the semester. So complexity of the task, it's one thing for sure to keep in mind when answering how often. So let your student to progress a little bit, because tasks as a method of teaching requires to a bigger extent integration of all language skills, beyond language skills, critical thinking, creativity, yes. So the students, if it's task-based learning, need to acquire some competence and skills in order to accomplish that particular task. So complexity. And the other facet is, actually it depends on the classroom. You know that all students are different, and you as a teacher, you know your classroom. If you observe that your particular student perform quite well with controlled activities, but still struggle to apply a structure or maybe lexical units in a freer communicative activities, then I would encourage teachers to apply task-based learning on a constant basis. Maybe by the end of unit, when they have achieved some progress, acquired new vocabulary, new skills, new constructions. So you would offer them an opportunity, an area where they can demonstrate it through a task using all language skills integratively, plus display their creativity, their natural interest, an authentic task. So complexity and classroom observation, because task, it's not a traditional control practice. It's very communicative, freer type of activity. So keep in mind where your students' needs are.
Okay. Yeah. Well, here, while listening to your answer, so another question has come to my mind. So, unplanned question. You know that there might be some students who are timid, who are not that confident, right? And they are reluctant to participate in such kind of activity, especially if they don't want to be recorded and to be watched by their peers as an actor, right? So how would you act? For example, a student has no wish to participate in this activity. So in order to provide the inclusivity of this method, how would you, well, apply it for the whole class?
That was my thinking point. All unexpected questions are very challenging, but they're the most interesting maybe. I was thinking about the same question because, okay, this experience was pretty much successful, but in order to be able to be replicated to other classes, we need to think, yes, one step ahead. What if students are shy, not ready, yes, to be recorded? Again, coming back to this question, observe your classroom. You can easily turn format. It's something that teacher can vary. It's variable. Yes, it could be poster. It shouldn't be necessarily video based project. Oh, sorry. Can you hear me? Can you see me? Because I can't see you.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You can't see me? Really? Ella, you have muted yourself. Ella. Okay. Oh, how can I reach to her? Okay, just a second. I will write. Something has gone wrong. Ella, can you hear me?
Okay, yeah, I don't know what's happening. Ask to unmute. Okay, meanwhile, just I wanted to ask the audience, have you ever implemented task-based language teaching in your practice?
So, dear colleagues, so it would be interesting to listen to your experience. So maybe you have already applied this practice into your own teaching. Here we are receiving questions by from Muna Muhammad. Okay, Mohammed. Okay, so we will refer to these questions after some audience share their experience. Okay.
Ella, you're still muted. Ella, we cannot hear you. You're still muted. Okay. So,
now, can you hear me now?
Now, yes. Now.
Thank you. I don't know what's happened. For less than a second, for less than a minute, my display was black, so I had to do something.
Okay.
So
it happens.
Now using both devices. Okay. Firuza, if
Yes.
you don't mind, would be nice if you could repeat your last question, because
Okay.
I was busy with
Actually,
dealing technical
yeah.
issues.
Actually, I was going to move on to the third question, but another question was asked by Nadira Pa, so from the audience. I think our colleagues are still thinking about the experience, but we have a couple of questions from Muna Mohammed. By the way, Nadirapa, can we move on to question 3, because my third question is very similar to the first question from our colleague. Okay, so well, let me read the question from the chat. Ella, shall I read it, or you can say it yourself?
I can see it.
Okay, so this is my question. So I was also thinking about the age and level of students, and I think this question is also similar. So can you read the question and answer it?
Yes. So the question is how this approach can be replicated for a classroom with a higher level students or adults. Well, for sure, if we talk about format, I can see there are a variety of dozens of methods of techniques how this can be, how task-based approach can be employed. So it could be poster presentation, or it could be a report. It could be even an article or a short narration, production of a short narration. But as comes to the task itself, of course, with higher level students, the teacher probably will be interested to elicit other structures or other skills, just while thinking about what it could be for higher level students. Since I'm teaching as EAP teacher now at Moscow State University, just recently, my recent experience, just recently, we were covering a unit of describing different charts, tendencies, yes, and it was a very similar in approach, small-scale task-based task for them. So they can be asked to conduct a small survey, interviewing their classmates or other English-speaking students around the faculty, around the campus, gathering information that they would like to report back to the classroom. But of course, the question that was asked, what is your favorite TV program? Of course, they gathered background information as gender, well, for example, social status for sure, students, gender, age, okay, major. And then this only question that they asked fellow students, what's your favorite TV program? So they gather the information, they have to analyze it, and they need to report it back to the classroom. And while reporting, they will address and refer to passive voice. So referring, maybe they will present it in a form of a poster that it's a task-based with simple infogram or images of pie chart, bar chart, but it will be a oral description of their findings of the results. That could be also implemented, I think, for higher level students. Adults, well, it could be done for adults, because we talk about high level students, we mean here, first of all, language proficiency and age. So this second year students, they're definitely adults. I think it can be successfully replicated, but the task, the content of the task should be changed.
So it can be applied to any age and level. Yes,
Minding
depending on the
consent. Yeah,
discipline.
I've just shared. Yeah, with the report,
Okay.
survey. Yeah, bringing back your results.
So follow-up question by Muna Mohammed. So the person, so it was interested about the feedback. So what about feedback providing? The topic is not difficult, but feedback is a bit challenging. So can you read the question?
Do you
From the
want
chat?
me to read the question in the chat?
Yes.
Muna Muhammad, right?
Yeah. Second question.
Okay. The first one we have covered.
Mhm.
What I mean by this, the usage of the present simple is simple, but giving feedback is a little challenging. Are we talking about feedback from a teacher's perspective or feedback to each other's posts or videos from students' perspective?
I think both of them is important. So students cannot provide feedback in the level
Unless
of
that
students,
post.
right? So
Yeah,
can
right.
you describe from both perspective, please?
I actually don't have even to think about what to answer on the second part of this, students to student. Of course, posting, messaging or commenting politely is also a skill that students, first of all, needs to be taught. So, but it could be also a good opportunity to teach them so, but it wasn't my objective. Nevertheless, the follow-up of this task-based learning teaching approach in this particular classroom has a follow-up. The students, I provided them with a platform where the students posted, shared their short videos so that other students can actually watch. And I even encourage them to comment on one or two. And of course, commenting was simple, but nevertheless, they already produced some simple written a written sample of English. So there was a follow-up, but it wasn't an objective. Since it could be a good opportunity to teach them how to comment, at least to be polite, how to address another student, how to encourage, say what you like, because there was specific question that the students were encouraged to answer while commenting. Yes, what do you like about this particular post? And if you would like to repeat it, then why? Because it's do it yourself project. The name tells for itself. Yes, students share their talents, competencies. They taught each other how what they can do and how it can be done. As for the teacher perspective, if we use this particular task for assessment, then of course, before you giving them any feedback, you need to think, you need to bother yourself with designing some simple assessment criteria. And then of course, you can either report it orally or in written form, again, in a short of a message individually. So to give up constructive feedback on the performance, you need to address, first of all, your lessons objective. We did it for a purpose, not just for entertainment. Yes, not just demonstrate our talents. Good, it was a platform, but there was an overarching goal, language. So when teacher commands, all these should be addressed. Content, yes, organization, and language, of course. So content, probably all the students who submitted their work, they got a very good appraisal from teacher's part because they did it. They maybe some that were shy really did. It was challenging for them, so they had to push themselves, stretch out themselves in order to participate. They were challenged a little bit, so it's worth appraisal and recognition from teacher's perspective. As for the language, again, what were our unit or topic objectives? Please, the teacher are welcome to comment on that. Well, giving them a constructive feedback. What was done good, what is done, what could be improved. This is how I did it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see.
Firuza, can I jump in and ask a question? I was looking for the button that says like raise your hand, but it, evidently as a host, I think I don't have that button. So can I ask?
Okay, sure. You're welcome.
And there is a question from our YouTube viewer. And my question was connected to that. So Ulugbek wants to know, if I want to know more about TBLT, what book or article would you recommend? But I also wanted you to kind of briefly describe the who are the kind of the founders or the big names behind this approach, and what are the main stages. So, you know, for the people to have a kind of a better understanding of the theoretical underlying rationale for this approach.
Mm-hmm. If you had a chance to read my article, of course, what comes to the engagement, there are two references there. Yes, it's teaching English through engagement techniques, but what comes to TBLT, I used Celso Murcia 2014 book and the book of John Brown 2014. What comes to TBLT as a teaching method. So as for engagement technique to engage students, it's stated in my article, probably with details of the citation details, reference details to the year of publication, author, the name of the book. So you can find it there. And Nadira, there was another part of your question.
Yeah, the stages.
So
what are the stages of task-based language teaching?
Well, the task for me as a teacher, when we consider it as a teaching approach, there is also a pre-task stage where you scaffold your students, because just to pose an assignment for them, it could be, well, we can overkill their motivation. Doesn't matter how interesting and captivating it might sound. You need to scaffold. So there is a pre-task where we practiced in maybe controlled, more focused form activities, semi-controlled activities, where we practice adverbials, uncountable nouns, yes, using present simple for narrative purposes. And only after that, when we cover the scaffolding period, I felt that they are ready to be assigned with this authentic, freer activity. So we didn't jump right after some exercises. We didn't jump right into this task of do it yourself. Of course, instructions. There will be questions, especially when you do it with your classroom for the first time. There will be questions. Be prepared to instruct them, to guide them. That's the first stage, is scaffolding with more controlled, semi-controlled activities where they can stretch out their competences, skills. Yes, describing maybe a picture or something, describing some simple process, using adverbials first, then and after that. Beyond that, there was a teacher demonstration. How detailed your instructions could be, still it's just written piece of language that students might misinterpret in their own way, even though you try to use it user-friendly 100%, but there will be students who didn't understand, and that might block them from participation. That could be a pity. So in order to mitigate that risk, I spent time and did teacher demonstrations. So basically, in that article, there was a link, and it's still active, by the way. You can follow it and find my teacher's demonstration, do it yourself, on YouTube. Is there anyone who knows what is it about? I just share. I was doing a sandwich. It's a simple process, video. First, we put slices of bread. Then we add our spread mayo. So the same teacher demonstration, that helped them a lot to first of all, right? To accomplish and get successful impression. We did it. Yes. So that was my major steps to practice this TBLT.
Ella, so while reading your article, I was really curious about your students' videos. So it was a group work, right? So
actually, no. They were
individual task.
Some students really would like to do solo. You know, there were some stars who would like to do solo, and they actually accomplished it by their own. There were only 2 students who did this as a pair work.
And what was the videos like? So in terms
Yes.
of context, for example, was it recorded at their homes or classroom, out yard? So this was really interesting for me.
Fortunately, cannot share because, of course, that's video and it involves parents' consent. But I can briefly explain. Many students decided to repeat my cookery experience. They did omelette, even though I did toast. One student did cooked milkshake, strawberry. It was April, May, so there was a season. And one student showed how to dance a particular dance movement. One student showed how to do bookmarks, for decoration and diary. Two students showed how to play a video game that was working in together. How to code a simple video game using Scratch, yeah, language coding. So there were a variety, but most of them, they just followed my experience at the kitchen, even though they cooked, two of them omelette, milkshake, Caesar salad. So it was a variety. We can actually, I regretted that we didn't vote for the best one, do-it-yourself project.
I see. Yeah, it's very interesting. Thank you. Okay. Well, do we have any questions? So, colleagues, if you have any questions, if you have developed any question while listening to Ella, so you are welcome to ask. Well, you can also share your experiences. Well,
Firuza,
yeah,
am
can
I
I ask a
audible?
question?
Yes,
Okay. Yes, Ella. Can I ask a question? So yeah, you mentioned about, thanks for the references. But I think the underlying, so just the Prabhu, I think is considered to be one of the founders of this method when he applied this kind of task-based approach while teaching in India in, I think in 90s, 50s or 60s, I think, so Prabhu. But then it's been, I think, very popularized with many other researchers, but also I think Jane Willis, I think, and her husband Willis, like St. John, I think. So they were, I think, the most kind of advocates of this approach. So task-based learning. So they were calling it, first of all, is putting the emphasis on the learning. And then based on that, I think they started talking about the task-based language instruction and language teaching. That was just a note. But that's when I think it's Jane Willis, who came up with this pre-task, task, and then post-task stages and defining what they are, what are the purposes, etc. I wanted to ask, how do you differentiate between task-based learning and project-based learning and teaching, obviously, if there are any differences, or do you use them? Because now you said, the project, you mentioned, the project at the end, right? So do you kind of see any differences, or do you think that you regard them totally similar, task and the project?
Thank you for a good question. As my understanding, of course, this project-based, task-based tend to be used interchangeably. What is the difference from as a teacher perspective? I understand that project-based learning teaching is still more learner-centered, while task-based tends to focus on the task more. Because despite that, it's engaging, it provides opportunities for creativity, self-expression, critical thinking, self-evaluation. Still, the overarching goal is to accomplish a task and to meet our classroom objectives. So the task still is the center of this journey in task-based learning teaching, my understanding, while project-based PBL gives more freedom to students and more learner-centered. Have I managed to answer the question?
Okay, maybe, but don't you think that in one case you mentioned this project, right? So do you think this particular task that you gave them, right? Do you consider this as a project or as a task?
Well, so I consider it as a task, but when I mentioned small scale project, we were discussing probably application age to higher level students, yes? With higher level students, I think more freedom is necessary to accomplish the task. Survey does not require teacher demonstration. Survey, if it's a survey, to conduct a survey and then report back, higher level students, adult students can be more engaged in project-based activities rather than task, because task, I still consider that there is pre-task where you scaffold, and specifically with its when it's secondary or elementary school students, instructions might not suffice, and maybe a teacher demonstration will be required because we need to accomplish the task and using language as a tool in one way, but still meeting our lessons objectives that should not be neglected in the pursuit of doing the task, bringing back the results in form of the task, while language is neglected. Language should be still, it's a language classroom. That's why I think the task-based and project-based, they are different in a way how you center where actually is the core element of it, task or learner-centered approach.
Sorry, that was my kid. Yeah, so I think both of them, of course, they are learner-centered approaches. But I think what you mean is the difference between the longitude, the length, right, and the steps, sub-steps, right? For example, you were mentioning that for project, they might need to do kind of more steps, right? So like do a survey or do some research, right, to complete that task, right? So it's kind of might be a bit longer, right? And it might involve other skills and other steps, right? So whereas for task, it's kind of more shorter and kind of it's very more focused, right? It's kind of one step, right? So that's I think what you mean.
Yes, I think task depends on the classroom. It should involve more. You need to break down this whole task into maybe smaller steps in order to help the student to accomplish it. And of course, it depends on the classroom and the task itself. But with the project, I don't know, I think the task could also be a unit length. So it could be the culmination of a unit, like end of a unit task or end of a term task. But if it's end of a term task, still, I think it resonates very closely with project. But with task, you need to make sure that there are smaller steps which students might cover in order to be able to accomplish a bigger assignment that we call task. I totally agree that project-based approach and task-based approach, they have lots of similarities. But since you asked about the differences, this is how I see it.
No, yeah, that's absolutely fine to say that they are kind of, they have lots of similarities. Yes. Yeah, and I think that's a good kind of explanation that project-based is probably completing a project might take several stages, and it might be something longer that they need to do for a longer period of time. So there might be more scaffolding. There might be several classes, right? So not only one, right? They may do this over 1 month or like over series of lessons, right? Yes. Whereas task can be much smaller thing. For example, even drawing a map of how you come from school to from your home to school, or even these information gap activities, right? So they are also considered tasks, right? So like
Yes,
something they do within the class within 10 minutes, 15 minutes, maybe.
One question just for our audience. When we think project, we assess the final result. As come for the task, again, it depends on the teacher availability and readiness and necessity. Even if a pre-task may come through some formative assessment, since we break it down into smaller pieces. And then the final task, the final one could be assessed through a summative assessment.
Well, the same can be about project as well. You can do both in both. Yes.
Oh, maybe. Okay.
Yes, you can. Yeah. Yeah, great. Firuza, I think we can move on to your fourth question.
Yes. Well, Ella, before I move on to the fourth question, I would like to ask another question, connected one. Well, you are a teacher, trainer, right, at Webster, and you have a good experience, and probably you have been observing how language teachers are using TBLT in their classes. According to your observation, so what is the role of this method in Uzbekistan context? First, I would like to ask this question, then we will move on to this.
Yes, since we are dealing with Uzbekistan context where English is spoken as a foreign language, I think the opportunity to integrate the skills, like in a lifelike situation, yes, it's a very good case with TBLT to be employed in our EFL context where there are really limited opportunities to practice, to interact in this language outside of the classroom. So TBLT provides this even sometimes short-term, but still immersion into how language is used as a tool authentically. I think it's very important so the teacher can give a student a chance, students a chance to integrate all those skills together and interact in a target language for authentic purposes, something that is meaningful for your students. And you also asked me about my observations of how frequently they use this TBLT. Well, Firuza, to be honest, of course, the application of this method is probably attributes more to the course of SOL teaching method, which I unfortunately didn't read this semester. And I cannot tell you much more about their experience as for this particular issue, application of TBLT. But if we can connect your question briefly with question 4, I would share my understanding. Why do we think that what prevents most language teachers, if we assume that there is something that prevents them from applying TBLT into their class, and what could be the reasons? Yeah. Well, we covered why it's useful. It's engaging for the students. Plus, it's a very good opportunity to get them practices in authentic environment, authentic settings. But what prevents teachers? Well, first of all, of course, it's pedagogical issues, because the teacher needs to foresee so many steps in ahead, right? It's not like using fill-in gaps, for example, exercise where it's very practical and you can easily assess the progress. So the teacher needs to foresee, and mentally, at least, and on preparatory level, to cover this path by his or her own before bringing it into the classroom. So it's a preparation. Besides, depends on, of course, on the classroom. The teacher needs to have a good rapport with the students in order to be able to offer them something that they will be interested and willingly participating. And of course, the issue of assessment, because since it's a task, whether it's summative or formative, students still want to know how they did. They need to know about their progress. So if it's task-based, how to assess a task, it could be an issue for a teacher, because if it's designed from scratch, totally initiative for a teachers, and teacher needs to think about designing rubrics. It also can be challenging, right? Properly assess what items should be considered, what criteria should be considered for assessing. But language for sure should be a part of that assessment. So I think this is a two-way avenue. One is pedagogical issue, because the teacher needs to prepare a lot and foresee a lot, starting from instructions and finishing with assessment. And the other facet is to know the students quite well and to be able to take that risk together with the students and to offer them something and encourage them, motivate them to do that. And of course, guide your students while they're doing this, because they might be questioned on the go, right? So I think this two major issues might be in a way blocking teachers in EFL context, where students might be a little bit timid to demonstrate their skills outside of the exercises in their textbook. The same as well teachers.
Okay, thank you. Well, Nazirapa, would you like to ask something?
No, thank you. No, I think Ella was quite comprehensive, and then I think you got any other questions? Sid?
Yeah. Do we have any questions from the audience? So they tend to be a bit passive today. Well, it would be great if you contributed with your questions, or at least you could share your experiences, or maybe you had similar cases to what Ella has mentioned.
Right. Or I think you can also just voice your suggestions for other tasks or projects, right, that you can implement in your classrooms. I think that will also be useful for everyone, just voice your suggestion. Like, what do you think might be, like, because she used like one giving instructions on how to do something, right? Like, what other tasks you can implement in your classroom.
Sorry, because I've missed important part of your question.
No, there are no questions. We're inviting the audience to ask their questions or comments or suggestions, recommendations, etc.
Okay.
Anyone? Okay, everyone I think fell asleep. It was, I think it was very clear, and I hope that people are encouraged and inspired to use this method in their teaching practice, right? So listening, Zuhra, yes, great.
Yes.
So you have to listen actively, just say, right?
Yes. In English teaching classrooms, at least we have some role plays, right? Which can lead to task-based teaching, task-based language teaching. So I don't believe if you never touched this method. So could you share your experiences? So it would be much appreciated. Okay, I have lack of courage. Why, Zuhra?
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Can I, even though I have joined the webinar late, I have read the article and I really like the article, and it inspired me a lot to do more task-based lesson plans in my during my teaching experience. And I also had remembered one experience with my 6th grade pupils. If you know, there is one lesson you name it Pancake Day. And on that lesson, we had we had prepared all the things to cook pancakes in the classroom. And all the pupils brought the ingredients of the pancake, and while speaking and explaining them how to do the pancake with the use of English, we cooked it and tasted it in the classroom. It was really amazing experience for both of us, both for pupils and me also. And it was really interesting lesson, by the way. But I have didn't use how can
assessment.
I say? Yes,
you did not assess.
Yeah, I didn't assess them.
Okay.
And in the article, I really liked the idea of giving them task to make a video by themselves. I think it's very useful and intriguing for pupils. And nowadays, they are really interested in taking videos. If they do it in English, it will be more, how can I say, aim-oriented. It would
yes,
be.
exactly. Yeah, Madina, thank you for sharing your experience. While listening to your example, and very interesting and useful activity has come to my mind. So I think students could participate in such kind of engaging activity in the classroom. And as a home task, we could assign them to write, to describe the case. Why not? I think it would be a great home task with some language focus. Yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you. It was my first year of teaching, so I didn't have much experience how to engage with the pupils. So later on, after teaching more years, I found out my mistakes. And now I have tried to make less mistakes and to make my lessons more student-oriented, more student-centered.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, really interesting.
Firuza, just spinning off this idea of having students writing about this experience of cooking a cake or pancakes. Yes, it could be practicing the imperative or giving instructions. So just by practicing oral speech, they can follow up with writing experience or writing activity. Good.
Okay, do you think it is a good example for task-based language teaching?
Of course, yes, for sure. And Madina, you mentioned that video. The video was the necessity of the time. It was absolutely impossible to meet face-to-face last spring. That's why video presentation was the only option. Otherwise, of course, being in a physical class and sharing the energy and enjoying each other could be even an extra asset. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well, do we have more volunteers? Zuhra, you mentioned you have lack of courage, so you can feel free. So we will be only happy to hear from you. So if you have any similar experience, you can simply share it. Don't be shy. Okay, here we are here to learn something from each other, to listen to each other. So no need to tell that you have no enough courage. Okay. Okay, Zuhra, you are eager to learn new methods. Yes, you can observe our sessions, and every time we invite enthusiastic teachers like Ella, and you will learn more and more new methods. Okay. Well, Najrapa, what would you say?
Yes, I think thank you so much. I think we had a very interesting and engaging conversation about the task-based learning and teaching and how to integrate it into our teaching. Yes, thank you so much, Ella, for the article, first of all, and sharing your experience. As you said, I think it should encourage people to share, being just a practitioner and sharing your experience is as valuable as be writing something theoretical, right? More and yeah, don't think every experience is valuable. Every experience is different, right? So therefore we should share our experience with each other through writing articles and discussing them with each other. Thank you very much for answering our questions. And yeah, thank you for the audience for coming today and listening. And I hope you learned something new that you will try to implement in your teaching practice.
Yes, thank you, Zero.
Thank you, Feruza, for moderating and facilitating this.
Yes, you're welcome. So, dear colleagues, please keep reading HTFL in Uzbekistan, our journal, the only journal, language journal in Uzbekistan. Okay, thank you. See you in next session.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.